The Galactic Council's emergency session had been called for the third time in 12 standard cycles. Admiral Zixathera of the Hegemony Fleet clicked her mandibles nervously as the holographic displays showed the same impossible readings that had been haunting their sensors for weeks. The gravitational anomaly has stabilized in Sector 7 Prime, announced the Etherian delegate, its crystalline form pulsing with anxious energy. Whatever the humans are constructing out there, it's affecting space-time itself. Council Speaker Morden raised his forearms for silence. The assembled representatives of 43 species fell quiet, their various forms of breathing, chittering, and harmonics creating an unsettling symphony of fear. The question remains, Morden's voice resonated through the chamber. Should we intervene before the humans complete their project? Ambassador Katera of the Void Dancers spoke first, her serpentine form coiling with agitation. The humans have been silent for 6 months. No trade, no communication, no movement beyond their home system. This is not their pattern. Precisely why we should be concerned, interjected General Vorth of the Siege clans, his massive frame bristling with bioarmor. Humans don't go quiet. They chatter constantly, spread like a plague across the galaxy, interfere with everything. When humans go silent, he didn't need to finish. Everyone remembered the Proxima incident. The tactical display shifted, showing long-range sensor data from the Sol system's edge. What they saw defied conventional physics. A structure, vast beyond comprehension, hung in the void between Pluto and the Kuiper Belt. It wasn't built. It had been grown, shaped from dark matter and exotic particles that shouldn't have been stable. Initial estimates suggest it's roughly the size of Earth's moon, the Etherian continued, its voice trembling with frequencies that translated as awe and terror. But the mass readings, they're impossible. It's as dense as a neutron star, yet it maintains structural integrity. Admiral Zixathera leaned forward, her compound eyes focusing on the data streams. What's its purpose? Before anyone could answer, every sensor in the chamber screamed warning simultaneously. The representatives turned to the central display as space itself seemed to fold around the mysterious human construction. Then it moved. Not through space, past it. The Dreadnought, for that's what it had to be, simply existed in one location, and then existed in another, covering impossible distances in the blink of an eye. The wake of its passage left ripples in reality that would take millennia to settle. By the void, whispered Katera. It's heading for the Draconis swarm. The Draconis swarm, a hive mind species that had been systematically consuming worlds along the galaxy's edge for the past century. The combined fleets of the Galactic Council had thrown everything at them. Plasma bombardments that could crack continents, quantum torpedoes that rewrote local physics, even experimental weapons that deleted matter from existence. Nothing had stopped their advance. The human Dreadnought arrived at the swarm's primary cluster in what should have been a 3-week journey, completing it in 17 minutes. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 4 seconds. The first second, the swarm's billion-ship armada turned to face this new threat, their biomechanical vessels pulsing with anticipation of another meal. The second second, the human vessel opened what could only be described as an eye, a massive aperture along its hull that revealed depths that shouldn't exist, showing stars that weren't there. The third second, something that wasn't quite light, and wasn't quite matter erupted from that eye, washing over the swarm like a tide. The fourth second, silence. Not just the absence of sound, the absence of everything. Where the Draconis swarm had been, there was now empty space so void of matter that it bent light around its edges. Not destroyed, not disintegrated. Gone as if they had never existed. The Dreadnought closed its eye and began the journey home. In the council chambers, 43 species sat in stunned silence. The readings were clear. The humans had just erased an existential threat to galactic civilization, using technology that made their most advanced science look like stone tools. "We need to send a message," Mordun finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What kind of message?" asked Admiral Zixathera. "Thank you," he replied. and perhaps an invitation to dinner. Ambassador Katera's form rippled with what might have been nervous laughter. You want to invite the species that just deleted a billion-ship fleet out of existence to a social gathering? The alternative, Morden said, gesturing at the empty space where the swarm had been, is that we continue pretending we're their equals. 3 days later, a response arrived from Earth, not through hyperspace or quantum entanglement, but delivered by a human in a simple courier ship who appeared at the Council Station's docking bay with no record of how he'd bypassed their defenses. The message was brief. Dinner sounds lovely. We'll bring dessert. Humanity. As news spread across the galaxy, a new understanding settled over the civilizations of the Council. The humans weren't just another species reaching for the stars. They weren't even apex predators claiming territory. They were gardeners tending a cosmic garden, and they had just pruned a rather troublesome weed. The stars themselves seemed to whisper a new truth. In this galaxy, there were predators, there was prey, and there were humans. The distinction between the first two had become largely academic. And in the vast darkness between worlds, the human, Dreadnought, continued its patient orbit, waiting and watching with eyes that could see beyond space and time, ready to tend to any other weeds that might need removing from the cosmic garden they called home.